first grade. So today we have our domain review before our assessment, and you should have already gone through this PowerPoint and looked at the pictures and told me the title, if it was a fable or a folktale, the moral, the main character, and then a brief description or a brief summary of the story. So your beginning, middle, and end of that story. Okay? So I'm going to go over that, and then after that, we're going to do some riddles, and you're going to have to guess which fable, folktale, or which character I am describing, okay? So this picture comes from the folktale, All Stories Are NPCs, okay? And the moral from this one was, even if you're small, you can still do great big things, right? And the plot in this story, so basically there was Anansi the spider, right? Anansi the spider, who wanted to get stories from Naomi, the sky god, and give it to the people so that the people wouldn't be bored, right? And the sky god said, well, I'll give you the box of stories if you can catch three things for me. And it was the python, Onini, the leopard, oh gosh, a sabo, and then the hornet, Moboro. Ooh, those names are hard to remember. And the spider basically tricked all of them and was able to capture all of them and give them to Naomi. And Naomi gave Anansi the stories in return, right? All right, next one. This is from my favorite, The Boy Who Cried Wolf. And it was a fable. And the moral was that if you often lie, people won't believe you when you do tell the truth, right? The main character was the shepherd boy. And in the beginning, the shepherd boy was lonely. So he wanted some company. So he decided that he would prank the farmers and yell, "Wolf! Wolf!" right? To come and to come give him some companies, to give him some attention. And then at the very end, a real wolf came. And when he cried, "Wolf! Wolf!" and it was for real this time, the farmers didn't believe him because he had tricked them too many times, right? And the wolf ate up the sheep. This came from The Tale of Peter Rabbit, which was a folk tale. Remember, it was a longer one. And the moral was to listen to your parents or to whoever it is that is in charge of you, right? And the main character was little Peter Rabbit right here. And in the beginning, his mom said, "Don't go into Mr. McGregor's yard and don't cause any mischief." Okay. And Peter Rabbit did not listen. So he went into the garden, and then Mr. McGregor saw him and almost caught him. And when he went home, by the time that the little Peter Rabbit got home, he was so tired and he didn't feel well that he didn't even get to enjoy the delicious supper that his mom had prepared, right? His sisters got to because they listened, but he did not. This is from the fable The Maid in the Milk Pail, right? And it was a fable. And the moral was, don't count your chickens before they're hatched, which just means don't plan or don't expect everything to go to plan, right? And the main character was Peggy, the milkmaid. And she milked the cow, and then she was going to sell the milk at the market so that she could buy herself some chickens and eggs so that she would have enough money to buy a beautiful blue dress and blue ribbons, right? But she was walking and she was balancing the milk on her head, and she was so focused on the blue dress and how all the boys were going to love her and all the girls were going to be jealous. And she was like, and I'll be like, oh, I don't even care. And when she did that, what happened? The milk fell off her head and she was not able to buy the chickens and the eggs so that she could have money to buy her blue dress and her blue ribbon, right? So then she had to go home and tell her mama that the milk spilled and she wasn't able to do all those things. The next one. This is from the folktale, The Crowded, Noisy House, right? And the moral of this story was not to be upset when things don't go your way because they could always be worse, right? And the main character in this story was the poor Jewish man, right? And he went to go get advice from the rabbi and said, what should I do? Because my house is too noisy and too crowded. And the rabbi told him to bring all of his animals in. And it was crazy. It was even worse than before, right? And then the Jewish man went back to the rabbi, and the rabbi said, okay, now take the animals out. And when he did, he realized that his house really wasn't that bad to begin with, right? It wasn't too bad. So that was that story. Next one. Ooh, okay. This comes from The Wolf in Sheep's Clothing, all right? And in this fable, because it was a shorter one, the moral of the story was, what was it? Do you remember? Things aren't always as they seem, right? So, the wolf, he looks like he's a sheep, but he's not actually a sheep, he's a wolf. So in this story, the main character was the wolf. And in the beginning, the wolf wanted to eat the sheep, but he kept getting chased off by the shepherd boy and the shepherd dogs. So he dressed up as a sheep in a disguise and went in there to eat all of the sheep. But then at the very end, the shepherd picked the fattest, plumpest sheep to go to the market to sell, right? And because the wolf had been disguised as a sheep and was eating all the sheep, he was pretty plump. And the farmer took the wolf, who was disguised as a sheep, and sold him at the market instead. This is the goose and the golden egg, right? And it was a fable. And the moral was to not be greedy, right? That was the moral. Don't be greedy. And the main character in this story is the farmer. And the farmer went out to his farm or to his barn one day and noticed that the egg was not like the other eggs, that it was a golden egg and it was valuable. So then he started selling them and he got greedy and impatient and he got greedy and he got impatient. So then he planned to cut the goose open and take all of her eggs. And the goose found out the plan and was like, oh no, that is not happening to me. So the goose flew away to the neighbor and the poor farmer was left with nothing, right? This comes from The Fox and the Grapes, okay? And in The Fox and the Grapes, oh, sorry, that was a fable. And in The Fox and the Grapes, the moral was not to speak poorly about something that you once wanted just because you can't have it, right? And the main character was the fox. And in the beginning, the fox was walking along and saw some juicy, delicious grapes, and the fox really wanted them. So the fox was trying and jumping and couldn't get it. And then the fox got mad and stuck his nose up in the air and said, I didn't want those sour grapes anyway. Right? Okay. Oh, this was a good one. This was from Mediocre or The Little Half Chick, right? And this was a folk tale. Remember, it was kind of a longer one. And the moral was do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Okay, which just means treat others the way you would like to be treated. The main character was Mediocre, and in the beginning, he left to go to Spain to have dinner with the king. Remember, he was not very nice to his mama and to his siblings. And on the way, he ran into some water, some fire, and some wind, and they all needed help. And they asked nicely, and Medio Pollito couldn't be bothered. He was like, I'm not helping you. I don't have time. And he was mean, right? He was rude. And then in the end, he needed help from the fire and the water and the wind. And they said, we're not helping you because you didn't help us when we needed help, right? And then Medio Pollito ended up being a weather vane forever and ever and ever. This was from the fable, The Dog in the Manger. And it was a fable. And the moral was to be kind, right? Is to be kind to others and is to share, especially when others need things more than you do, right? And the main character in this one was the dog. And the dog went into the barn and it was hot, so lay down in the manger full of hay and was sleeping. And then the oxen came in from a hard day of work and they just wanted to eat, but they couldn't because the dog was in the manger, right? So the oxen asked nicely, "Excuse me, will you please move so that we can eat our hay?" And the dog got really mad and was mean and said, "No, find somewhere else," right? And so the poor ox, they didn't get to eat their dinner when they were hungry and they worked hard and they deserved some dinner. Okay. And that was the last one. That was all of them. So now it is time for our riddles. Okay. So um, I'm going to give you a riddle and I want you to figure out who I am. Okay. I did not want to waste my time helping the water, the fire, or the wind. Who am I? Who didn't want to waste their time helping the water, fire, and the wind? Medio Pollito, right? He couldn't be bothered. The poor, unfortunate man came to me for advice when it was too noisy in his hut. Who am I? I'm going to read it again. The poor, unfortunate man came to me for advice when it was too noisy in his hut. Who am I? The rabbi from the crowded, noisy house, right? Because the poor Jewish man came to the rabbi and asked for help. I got into mischief by going into Mr. McGregor's garden. Who am I? Who went into Mr. McGregor's garden? Peter Rabbit. Here's the last one. I played tricks on the python, the leopard, and the hornet. Who am I? Anansi. All right, guys. Thanks for reviewing. I know you're going to do great. Bye.